Welcome back to the first official episode of Momhood, where we dive deeper into the beautiful complexities of motherhood together. Today, we have a very special guest, Devin Cordle.
Hi.
So if you don't know Devin, she and her husband Hunter have been on social media for a few years. They have a lovely podcast that she started too called Salty. Go check it out.
So sweet.
But yeah, I'm so excited to have you on.
I'm excited. It's so fun.
Yeah, this is really, really exciting. So I would love if you just started out like talking a little bit about who you are, introduce the folks.
Okay,
and
yes.
we'll get right on into it.
Yes. Well, I'm Devin. I live in Alabama with my husband. We have a 3-year-old daughter, and I'm pregnant with a little boy. Our occupation, you could say, is full-time social media content creation. What that looks like, it's a whole lot that I can't just spill right now. It's take forever.
I know, that's like a whole topic in itself.
I know.
Yeah.
But I love Jesus. Me and Hunter are high school sweethearts, and yeah, I think that's the gist.
Yeah, that was a good start. Yeah, so Ivy is your first. You said she's 3 years old.
Yeah.
So how was the process, I guess, like leading up to you guys deciding to become a family?
Gosh, that was a season, I'll tell you. So I have never been, looking back, even when I was little, I never could see myself as a mom. It wasn't a passion I had. Like, I played with baby dolls, but it just wasn't something, like I remember my mom telling me, my mom has 6 kids. That's a lot of kids.
Wow.
And I remember her telling me, I used to feel like I didn't want any kids, but here I am with 6. And I was like, not going to be me. I was like, I couldn't even picture it. And so as I grew up and all that, I knew that's what was next. Like after you got married, you start a family, whatever. That's the typical norm. Well, to be honest, me and Hunter both, we were high school sweethearts, got married right after high school. Still, we were like, are we going to have kids? It was always a talk, and we just never felt that it was in the cards for us. In a way, it's so hard to explain. We were content with just us and our dog. So
Your fur baby.
yeah. So thinking that we were content, it was a good place that we were in. We were always content with just being us. Well, I mean, it was still on my mind. People ask us all the time after, especially when you get married, they're like, all right, when's baby's coming? I'm like, I don't know.
That's like the one question that all of your family members are like pressing you on.
Yes, always.
So did you feel that pressure like from outside voices, I guess, of like, oh, well, I guess we should have kids?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
I feel like I was never pressurized. Now, if we've been married for 6.5 years, I might feel the pressure now, like be like, I can't believe y'all haven't had kids yet, or who knows.
Yeah.
But we were married we got married when we were 19 years old. We were married about 3 years before I got pregnant. And so the season leading up to deciding like, okay, I guess we do want a family. That was a season, it was 2020, COVID. And this is how I know it's from the Lord too, because that was a year that there was lack of peace, chaos going on in the world. So lack of peace from the outside, but on the inside, I was really focused on my relationship with the Lord, and in that isolated space because you couldn't be around anybody. And it was something I was praying about, and I was in a season of fasting, prayer, just about when to start trying for a family. The idea started kind of slowly becoming a passion in a way. It's almost gradually, I just started craving that newness that motherhood would bring to me. It's like I don't know. It's like I kind of do want to feel what it feels like to be a mom. And
like that longing.
Yes, that I never had. And that was just like kind of an onset put on. But then so I was just praying on it, whatever. And then we went back and forth for a while. And it was like the summer of 2020. And I was praying, fasting, and I wanted me and Hunter to be aligned because that's what I knew. I was like, okay, if it's truly from the Lord, we will be aligned. And literally at the same time, I think I might have come to him or whatever, and I was like, I think God's saying like it's time, and he felt the same way.
Wow.
And it was so emotional and chilling, almost a chilling moment where you get chillies, because it was so prominent that it was from God in that call. And we're like, okay, so I guess this is it. We're about to start trying.
That's so special because I feel like you don't hear about that a lot, like where you get into marriage and you guys are both kind of like, oh, well, kids are probably not on the cards for us. And then there is a switch in someone, but then you have to navigate of your partner not feeling the same way. And that's tricky. We actually had the same story in that sense where, well, not in the sense that we didn't want to have kids. We did, just the timing of it though. Yeah. We were like, 5 years plus after marriage for sure. And then one day we were just like, I feel like it's time. And then he was like, okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so that was good. Y'all are in agreement on the timeline too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we said 5 years too. Like if we ever did, we would start maybe in 5 years. But it was just, we're like, are we really going to do that?
Yeah.
And so,
was that scary, like starting a lot earlier than you would have ever anticipated?
Honestly, no, because of the peace I felt. And it was so from the Lord, and the reassurance I felt, and that we were both on the same page, and it was like exciting. Yeah. So obviously I was nervous. I knew life would change, because life as we knew it was only each other, because we had started dating in 8th grade. Wow. We had been together so long before. And it would change the pace of our life and change the pace of our relationship, because it's been just us. So now we're going to welcome somebody new into that bubble.
Do you think that made it harder or easier being with him for so long?
Oh my gosh, I feel like maybe both. Because easy, because we'd been together so long, we had jumped through our hurdles that we needed to jump through. Yeah. And so we were on a good page when everything, like, whenever we welcomed the child. And so it was like easier to navigate. And then obviously that brought its own set of stuff. But I would say it was a good place but it was also hard because we had only known each other. And it was, we were infatuated with just each other. Obviously God, but it was just, the attention was never taken off of one of us, because it was just us.
Yeah. How was that? Like when you had Ivy, like did your whole world just flip on its head?
Completely. Yes.
In a good way or not a good way?
And it's a good way now. I mean, I couldn't see life differently. I couldn't see her not in our life. Like, she is the missing piece. You know how everybody says, like, the missing puzzle piece, and it's so true. But it did take a little bit to see that, because whenever I had Ivy, I think it was so new and such a big change. And I think as a first-time mom, not being one to be excited for the anticipation of motherhood, in that sense, like, I had never craved it. Like, I remember being pregnant, and I was pregnant along a few of my other friends, and some of them were so excited. They're like, I knew I was always been called to be a mom. Like, it was just, since I was a little girl, I want to be a mom, and I never felt that. And me and another friend actually were like, oh wait, you feel that way too? Like, you're a little scared, like you don't feel that connection yet. And obviously she's not here yet. She was in my stomach, but still I just didn't feel that motherness, I guess. And so I was nervous to have her. And so when she got here, I felt the love and everything, but it still changed mine and Hunter's relationship much. We had to get used to the change. Like, I had to learn a new me and like all of that. And like so much goes into that, Right. And so that was the biggest thing, was having to learn the new me, but it ended up being the most beautiful thing.
And how did you learn the new you? Like, what was that process of, like, there is a huge change, you're navigating the newborn phase, navigating your new postpartum body, all the hormones. Like, what was that process like for you? Because I know some people bounce back fairly quickly, and others it takes like 2 years to really feel like themselves again.
So I would say it's like physically, like, I was 22, and so being pregnant this time, I can already tell the difference. And I'm like, my body is not my 22-year-old body anymore. It's going to take a little bit longer. So physically talking, the bouncing back, like, it wasn't even, I think I was sick. Like, I was a undiagnosed diabetic at that point, a type 1 diabetic, and not knowing that, like, looking back, I was so sickly looking. So physical, people were like, oh my gosh, you bounced back so quick or whatever. mentally, I was also very sick. So I struggled with postpartum depression really bad. And I think what took a toll on me was it's such a life change in that I wasn't prepared for. I don't think you can ever fully be prepared for that. And I think it was a process. It was first accepting that I needed help. I was like, I don't feel like myself. Like, I was like, what, if is this what motherhood is? Because if it is, like, I don't like the way I feel, like I love her. Like, she has nothing to do with the way I feel, but I feel sad. I don't feel joy anymore and all of that. And obviously hormones are so real, but I accepted on quickly that I was struggling with postpartum depression and anxiety. And so it scared me because I didn't like the way I felt. And so I did go seek help right away. I wasn't nervous about that. And I know typically, ironically, I'm not like a medical. If I don't have to take medicine, I don't want to take medicine. Like natural route all the way, all of this. But I scared myself so much by the way I felt that I was like, I need help. And for me to be the best wife and best mom, I need help, and I need to feel a little bit like myself.
What were some of like the warning signs where you're like, that's scaring me? Because there's a thin line, especially in the first few months, of your hormones are fluctuating. Like, is it just the baby blues?
Right.
Like, do I just need to get used to this? Or like, is it turning into postpartum depression? Like, what was it for you that was like, okay, like, I need to get seen?
So honestly, whenever I went to her, I believe it was her 2-week appointment, they give you a questionnaire. And right away they told me I was depressed, like by the way I answered the boxes. And I had dealt with a little depression before, like early years and stuff on and off, but so I kind of recognized what that felt like. And so I'm glad they asked me the questions, and a friend told me, like, answer the questions honestly. They're not going to take away your baby. Like, you're still a good mom.
Real fear?
I was terrified. I was like, if I answer this, I remember showing Hunter, I'm like, this box is how I feel, but should I put this? Like, because I don't want them to take away her.
Oh my gosh. I remember that too. Like, so I had a phone call, and I remember answering the questions to the lady, and I was like, yeah, I just feel like I need to like punch a wall. I'm like, oh, not my kid. Like, I promise, like, I don't want to hurt her. Like, but that's so real. Like, you just have so much overwhelming emotion that it's like, what do you do with that? Like, can you truly be honest?
Yeah.
Because that's a very vulnerable position to be in.
It is. Like, I couldn't imagine me answering that and then them like, well, you're not equipped. Let me take him away. Like, that's the fear I had. Thankfully, that's not the case. They're like, we want to help you. So I filled that out. I think it was the next day they called me. They're like, are you okay? And this was 2 weeks postpartum. So it was like baby blues, but also I think I was already looking back during my pregnancy entering into a depression because COVID. I got diagnosed with diabetes during pregnancy, but
how early during pregnancy?
It was the normal. Like, I took the sugar test and everything.
Oh, right.
But they had told me that they think mine was more than that they thought it might be type 1, type 2. So the health journey in and of itself was a lot. Feeling isolated. We were in a season where Hunter was having to work a lot of overtime so I didn't have to work. And so I was lonely a lot. And that was just an isolating period. Yeah. And so all of that, then you bring in the baby blues and everything. And I started having, like, obviously suicidal thoughts again. And that is what I was like, I cannot believe I feel this way. And I have, like, a precious baby that I'm supposed to be providing life for. I mean, she, in a way, saved me because, I mean, that's how I found out about my health. That's why I didn't ever do that, because I was like, she is relying on me to be here to mother her. Even through all that, like, I know I did the best I could for her. Like, I took care of her, made sure she was fed, all of that. But I was just like, golly, I hope I'm not like this. Like, I feel like the life was just sucked out of me. And so getting help, I did start medication, and that helped a lot. But it took me, I was on medication and all, but I also, like, sought out help with just talking to somebody. I never went to a counselor, and, like, now I'm like, dang, I should have went to a counselor just to talk to somebody else. Like, I'm all for that. But just talking to my mom and friends, like, everybody around me was so supportive, and that was a really big help. And Hunter had learned, I guess, in the past ways to help me cope with anxiety and things, and so he was very supportive as well.
Right. So because before you got pregnant, you said a little bit of depression, but you also dealt with some anxiety.
Yeah.
So did that like equip Hunter for postpartum a little bit? Or
I think so. It definitely
Yeah.
helped. And he had just learned that, because it used to be where I had these expectations for him to like heal me and things. And that's the thing where I'm like, only God can take that place, take that role. Hunter's very open with how he used to think that people that said they struggled with anxiety and all of that, it was just like hosh posh, like get over it, you're fine, whatever.
Right, yeah.
But having the relationship with me and him seeing it firsthand, he's like, this is real. And it did take him a while to also realize, like, he's a fixer. He wants to be able to fix things for me and fix things for his wife and his family. But in those moments, he knew, like, okay, instead of trying to offer solutions, just be a listener and be there. And so him having grasped that concept, I'm like, we're good. So during
I feel like that needs to be a question that they all ask. Like, do you want advice or do you want me to listen?
Like, what should I do?
Learning that, you're set. You're golden.
So that was a whole journey in itself and part of like what he had to get help on and stuff. But I'm so thankful how patient he was with me and all of that, because if he wasn't, and it just added to me, like if he was saying like, why are you like this? Like, why are you so sad? Like, that would have made it even worse, because I would have been like, I don't know. Like, I'm not choosing to be this way. I just feel this way.
That's honestly such a special thing to have, though, that like you guys were like, God was preparing the two of you and your communication with each other and how he can support you into postpartum. You didn't have to fix yourself for Hunter. Like, you were just able to come as you are, like just all in, and he was there for you in that way,
I know. And that's so cool, because like that's how Jesus wants us to come, is just as we are, and he takes us as we are and wants to, we don't have to be perfect and presentable to go to him.
Right.
But no, even though he was so sweet and he took the best care of me, I still felt so guilty, and I hated the way it was almost like when he was so nice about it or responded so well after I was just harsh or whatever. And then I'm like, oh, I feel bad, because he was just always so gentle to me, and Jesus is gentle with us. Like, it's just so.
How was your relationship with Jesus during this time? Because I know like you had a very strong upbringing in the faith in your season in that way. Like, what was your relationship with him like when you were at your lowest? Did it lead you to be stronger in your faith, or did that waver? Like, how was that for you?
Honestly, you would think that I was in such a low place that I would just want to cling to him, but I didn't. Like, I had no motivation, no desire to even pray, to read the Bible, to listen to worship music. Like, going back to that season, like, here I can be like, gosh, Devin, why didn't you do that? Like, he was there all along, like, just waiting for you to talk. Like, he was there for you. But being in that moment, in that bubble of self-pity, like, it ended up getting to a point where I didn't want to leave that bubble. Like, I became fixated on the self-pityness for myself. And I was
almost like you want to let yourself feel that way.
Right, because it just got, I don't even know. And so looking back, I can easily say like, dang, I knew what to do, but I just couldn't do it in the moment. What was so special though, and how I did end up seeing God through it, he used Hunter, like in the way that he was able to pour into me when I was not presentable and when I was not giving him anything in return. Yeah. Like, I was not meeting his expectations for love. And like, obviously physically you can't do that anyways for a while. But even after that, like, I just wasn't loving him with my words and actions and all that. But he was still choosing to love me despite me being so distant.
Isn't that so sweet how God uses his people when we don't look to him?
Yeah.
He still reaches out his hand to us, because the same thing happened to me. Like, I did not want to pray. I didn't want to read my Bible. I wanted to sit in that and didn't actually want to, but I couldn't do anything about it. It was like infectious. Yeah. You can't help it. And it was through my community and Cam that just pulled me out of that. And that really was where I saw Jesus and like his love for me and his steadfastness and
Yes.
faithfulness. When like we are just like turning our face away from him, he's still like, no, I got you. And I've actually never left.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I actually saw a picture. It's been months ago now, but it was Jesus, and it was like this cartoon picture, and it was like what we think is happening when we're in that season, and it's like God being so distant, but what's actually happening. And in those moments of being on the bathroom floor crying, or in your bed balled up not wanting to leave the room or whatever, like Jesus is just like has his hand on you. He don't have to say a word. And because that's the thing, is sometimes when you feel like that, you don't want to be given advice. It's almost like you just want to feel he's there, or someone's there, or just someone's present. And it's like he always was present.
Yeah.
And it was just like beautiful looking back that he's so gracious with us in that time. And the scripture about there's literally a time for everything, because I beat myself up for a little bit after that and be like, God, I'm not a good Christian. Like, I can't believe I didn't turn to him in my time of desperation and darkness. But the fact that, like, it took me seeing that analogy, like, he was fine with me not going to him. Like, his hand was there, and like, I got you, my child. Like, you're good. And just to sit and like allow us to go through what we needed to go through, and to feel like he's not making us feel like we're condemned for feeling those feelings. Like, we live in a sinful world, like things are going to happen. And just the fact that he never left.
He never left. He was always there.
Always there.
So good. Wow. That is so sweet how God has worked in that situation for you. And now fast forward 3 years and you're pregnant with baby number 2.
know.
Would you have ever expected yourself to go through this again?
No, because after that season, we were like one and done.
Yeah.
Like, I remember feeling like, okay, well, we made it through. We don't need to do it again. But it's so beautiful how God works, and I am excited this time. Like, the feelings I felt going into the first pregnancy, because it's so new and all of that, but I feel like I am equipped this time. Like, I know things will be different. It's not like it's copy paste of Ivy's situation, but I think knowing what I know, and like already have stepped into motherhood and already being transformed, that's why I love butterflies, because it just is like a transformation process, like a becoming a mom. Like, you end up learning a new you and all that, and it's the most beautiful you if you embrace it. And it can take a while, but so now I'm excited. I'm excited for the newness, and I know it'll have hard moments, but it's not so new. Like, I know what being a mom feels like, so that part won't be new. So I'm excited.
That's so sweet to see you in this position and to hear your positive outlook on it, because I know there's so many moms out there who have struggled with postpartum and postpartum depression, postpartum rage, postpartum anxiety, whatever it may be, that they cannot fathom the idea of going through that again. Pregnancy, birth, postpartum, now juggling 2 children, struggling with your hormones. Like, it's so beautiful to see how God has transformed you in that. And because I desire to have more kids, but I have, been living in fear of like, oh my gosh, do I have to go through that again? Like, that's terrifying. But it's so sweet to see, like, God's got you. And like, you can just see like the joy on your face of like,
yeah, I'm so excited.
Yeah. Like, you're glowing.
That's really, everyone's like, you're glowing. I'm like, that's because of that. I think Hunter is struggling more because he's worried about me, because he was on the outside of it.
Yeah.
He didn't feel what I was feeling. He felt things because of what I was feeling and all that. But I keep telling him, like, I'm excited, and it makes him excited to know I'm good. Like, I'm like, I'm good. And obviously science, hormones, all that stuff's real, but I know what I've been through, and I know what, now looking back, and like how God never left me, and what I should have done was to go to him instead of trying to avoid him. And so I wouldn't do that this time. I'm praying against depression, anxiety in Jesus' name, and I'm just excited.
That's really exciting. With all that excitement, is there still a little bit of like nervousness of like feeling unprepared if it does happen again? Or do you feel like, I know how to go through this? Like, because, there are a lot of people who will think, just pray away the depression, pray away the anxiety, and like, you'll be fine. And there is virtue in that. But also, there's very real, like, we live in a broken world. There's hormones and, external circumstances that can play into it still happening again. Like, how are you feeling about the idea of postpartum and how your preparedness of it?
No, I feel like I'd be naive to say that I'm not nervous. Like, there's no nerves at all. It's so odd because I do feel such a joy about it, but I still I don't want to be blind. Like, I don't want to. I'm using wisdom in that and knowing that that stuff still is real and that, okay, what if it does happen again? And so, but I do feel so prepared, and I did end up taking medication postpartum with Ivy, and that was a whole journey in of itself of feeling okay too. And then, so I know there's things out there that would help me, but also, like, spiritually, of course, and then just practical things that would help. And just, I became so isolated. I never left the house. I needed sunshine in my life.
Yeah.
And it was COVID, and so I'm thank goodness that there's no restrictions right now.
Oh
so
my
I can
gosh,
get out of the house if I need to. Like, and Hunter will be able to recognize that. And like we talk about it. We are openly communicating about the what ifs and things just in case, because we don't want to be unprepared, but still not to where it's crippling us to think about.
You also want to live in, like, the joy of your pregnancy now. Like, you don't want to just live in that, like, preparing for the worst kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like we're preparing for the best.
Yeah.
But practically.
So
like, going
sweet.
ahead and being like, let's plan to take weekly walks or go outside and just, like, I'm getting some flowers outside because I know I love fresh flowers. So I know that would bring me joy, just going outside and watering some flowers, you know? Things like that are what I'm been working on.
So little things. Yeah, that's so sweet. Well, okay, so you did mention that your pregnancy, the first time around, you got diagnosed with diabetes. And that's a whole other thing of, like, people are scared about getting pregnant for postpartum. You had a high-risk pregnancy.
Yeah.
And you're going through it again. How has it been going through a high-risk pregnancy for the second time?
Yeah.
Or would you consider it high risk?
No, it's definitely high risk because the first time it was a perfect pregnancy. I didn't know something wasn't right until, you take that sugar test, that drink you drink at 24, 25 weeks pregnant.
Yep.
Signs look
terrible, by the way.
I loved it. That's why I'm like, I am a true diabetic because I loved that sugar.
What? Oh my gosh, I hate it. What flavor did you get?
I got the orange.
Oh, I got the orange.
No, did you drink it?
I was struggling.
Did you drink it warm or cold?
I can't even remember.
Oh my gosh, put it in the fridge and it tasted like a sunny
I had to drink it in the moment. They, like, sat me down. They're like, you need to drink this in 2 minutes.
They gave it to me to take home to put in my fridge. And so I think that's what part of the reason.
That changes things.
It being a cold drink was so good.
They literally forced me down. Okay. They were like, yeah, no, you're going to finish that bottle within 2 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, okay.
No, if it was not cold, I probably would. But also, I had 5 minutes to drink it. And then I will say, even though I was like, this isn't bad, but I started feeling the effects immediately. Oh. And I was in the doctor's office and I started Googling because my eyes got blurry. I had a pee, which is so common in pregnancy. You have to pee a lot. What else? I was nauseous, all those things. So I Googled signs of gestational diabetes. And sure enough, I screenshotted it. I sent it to Hunter. I'm like, I think I have this. I was in the waiting room waiting to get my blood drawn. And he's like, no, you don't. Like, whatever. And I'm like, I have it. I do. Anyway, so I got home. And, no call is good news. Mm-hmm. And so the next day when I got a phone call, I'm like, uh-oh. Immediately, I'm like, wait. Oh, man. I think I wasn't supposed to get a phone call. And so they called me, and they were like, hey, Devin, just want to let you know your numbers. I can't remember. But you know how you have to take a second test, a 3-hour test 3-hour test if you failed the 1 hour.
Really?
She was like, we're just going to go ahead and get you sent to an endocrinologist. Like, and I was like, oh my gosh. I didn't know anything.
So you didn't even get the second test. They sent you straight to,
yes.
Wow.
But the thing was that endocrinologist was out for a month. So it took me a month of being on my own, knowing I had this new diagnosis. I didn't know what my number was that I failed by until I went.
They didn't tell you?
I should have asked. But so when I did ask, you fail if it's like 140. Mine was 321. And so I'm like, holy smokes. And so when I went to the endocrinologist, so they just told me, watch your carbs, whatever. So it was like such a journey. It's like taxing mentally because here I am getting this new diagnosis, nobody to help me but Google. And I joined Facebook groups, all this. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? And I try to eat healthy or whatever.
What do you mean no one helped you?
They-
Your OB was just like...
Well, they were waiting for the endocrinologist to get off, I guess she was on vacation or something.
Oh,
and it was like it was over Christmas
goodness.
break. I had no help in that way, and so it was such. That's why I feel like the depression started kicking in then because it
Yeah.
was like my body is failing her. She's gonna die. She's gonna be a stillborn. Like she's all these things that I was
Ugh.
so scared about, and thinking it was gonna be my fault because here I am didn't know. So they told me because the way my A1C looked and numbers that they thought I was already a diabetic, a pre-diabetic, and pregnancy probably just like lit it up. So had Ivy, I did have a little hope. I'm like, they say once the placenta comes out, if it's gestational diabetes, it should go away. It didn't.
Okay, and how did you know it didn't go away?
I kept checking my blood sugar.
Oh.
So I would eat like carbs or whatever, and I really was craving Krispy Kreme donuts. So my sister brought me Krispy Kreme donuts to the hospital, and yeah, it just didn't go back down. So that was months and months and months. I ended up getting diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So now, long story short, that was a very long story, not short.
Okay.
Now I'm pregnant again. I was nervous to get pregnant in a way, but I'm like, but I'm equipped in the medical sense now. I have an endocrinologist. I'm on insulin. I know what I have. I know how to prepare, plan, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
So going in, I'm high risk, but it's been good. I've been in good spirits about it, and I think it depends on the day. Like if my numbers are crazy, I get in my head and I get worried. But at the end of the day, I'm like, God, this baby is yours before he is mine, and you're gonna take care of. I can do the best I can do. I'm not going out just making my blood sugar go really, really high, but I'm like, I can only do my best, and he's gonna do the rest. That rhymed.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
I was not meaning to rhyme, but there we go.
That's such a sweet perspective to have of just like letting God take the rest, like cast our anxieties on him, like, and just let him work in that because yeah, like he prepared you for 3 years.
Yeah.
He's given you the practical knowledge, right? To like go through this high risk, like just owning it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What are like some of the practical things that you're doing? I know you're tracking like your food.
Yeah.
Right?
I track food. I'm on a pump, so that's constantly giving me insulin. And my blood sugar, I have a monitor for that, so I know what my blood sugar is at all times. So if I get a really high spike, insulin fixes it or whatever. Being pregnant, it makes it way harder to manage though. And so we're finally I'm 25 weeks right now, and so I can tell when I'm getting an influx of hormones because my numbers go crazy.
Really?
And then, yes, it's wild.
Wow.
And so it's harder to manage, and then it'll settle down. And so I'm just eating really clean, whole foods, that kind of thing.
How was it when, I want to rewind, I guess. How was it when you got the diagnosis? I want to talk a little bit more about that because, again, people don't expect it, but it happens to a lot, at least gestational diabetes.
Yeah.
Of you take that sugar test and, oh my gosh.
It's very common.
Yeah. And now you're just jumped into, now you're immediately high risk and weekly appointments and more things to worry about. Like, how did you navigate that?
Gosh, there's a video I took of myself because Hunter was working, and I was at that appointment alone when they told me it was my first endocrinologist appointment. So after I had the phone call, you have gestational diabetes. We're going to skip the 3-hour test. And I didn't know the number. Like, I didn't know what was going on. It was just her tone and her voice is what worried me. And so I was just like, what do I do? And she's like, just watch your sugars, watch your carbs, like all this stuff. I'm like, okay. Thankfully, I kind of had a background in nutrition I always ate pretty clean, exercise, all of that. So it wasn't just such a 180 switch. But still, so whenever I went to that appointment, and they told me so I'm just thinking it's gestational diabetes. Like, okay, it's kind of common, whatever. I'm going to try my best. Well, in that appointment, they were like, it looks like you're either a type 1 diabetic or type 2 diabetic already. I'm leaning more towards type 1. And they couldn't know because I'm pregnant. And that, I remember crying I was trying to hold it together, and I was just like, wait. So now I'm getting like a lifelong diagnosis during pregnancy. They had to give me that for sure after. But I remember taking a video and sending it to Hunter, and it was just me crying, being like, I'm so sorry, like, to her. Like, I just felt like I had already failed her. And that was such a, I mean, you know, pregnancy can be such a hormonal, mentally roller coaster. Woo! So it got me in my feels, but it took a toll on Hunter, seeing my health be not good, I guess. And so that was hard, because it wasn't just that I was diagnosed for pregnancy. It was, you actually now are diagnosed like lifelong.
Right.
And so it wasn't that pregnancy ends, everything's fine, like you'll have to keep doing whatever. But it was, I'm good now. I'm such an advocate for diabetes, and I try to be such a light in that space, because yes, it was hard initially with the diagnosis, but I can't do anything about it. I can't change it. I can only, and I know there's people out there that it terrifies them, and that I don't know. I just want to bring light to it, and in that sense, if that makes sense.
Because being on the outside, I feel like it's personally not talked about enough.
Yeah, it's really not, and it wasn't. And like, I'm like, what's diabetes?
Yeah.
And even though I learned about it in health class, like I went to school with a health degree, and it never made sense to me. Mm-hmm. And so now, like, I get messages all the time. They're like, thank you for like talking about it and making it seem not so scary and so, you know, whatever. Right. And I'm like, yeah, it is what it is. Like, I have it now, and nothing I can do about it. Yeah. So, I mean, just the best you can do.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I just had one last question. I guess if there was any advice you would give to yourself, picture you postpartum with your first, you just got through postpartum depression, you're realizing you're high risk. Now you have type 1 diabetes to navigate this lifelong diagnosis. Like, what advice or like words of encouragement, I guess, would you give yourself?
Gosh, I think the first thing is just a hug. Oh. And like, be like, if you could only see, like, this is a season. This is just a season, and the next one's coming. Like, not all seasons are meant to be spent in a storm, and that rainbows come after storms, and so like lots of rainbows are coming. And yeah, just to give yourself grace and just keep holding on, because you don't know what's coming, but I do now. Right. And it's so sweet. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, thank God I got help when I got help, or thank goodness I saw purpose in my life, even while I didn't see purpose, that there was still purpose for me being here, because now I can see the purpose that has already played out. And so I know future self, there's still purpose in what I'm doing now and now. And so, yeah, just to keep holding on, and God's got you.
God's got you. That was so sweet. And I feel very encouraged. I feel like I'm seeing myself in the future. That's just so like sweet. Our postpartum experience, and how similar it was, that I am just so excited to see you so excited, and can't wait to meet baby Brewer. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited.
Oh, this was so fun. Yeah. That encourages me. I'm like, see, like, that is why we share our testimonies. That's why we share our stories. And I'm proud of you and your journey that you've been on. And so I'm just so excited for all the future stuff.
All the future stuff. And the first official episode.
Woo! I feel honored.
Well, thank you for tuning into our conversation today. I hope you leave feeling supported and full of hope from our conversation with Devin Cordle. And we will see you next week. Love ya. Bye.